This video is sponsored by Skillshare. The first 1,000 people to go to skl.sh/polyphonic28 will get 2 months of learning free. For as long as musicians have been writing songs, other musicians have been covering them. Young musicians often cut their teeth playing covers, and even today most major rock groups slip a cover into their live set. It's not all that uncommon for people to record entire albums full of covers. And in the age of YouTube, covers have become more popular than ever. There's a wealth of odd and unique takes on beloved songs just waiting to be discovered. And it makes sense. If you really appreciate a song, a cover can be a great way to recognize it and pay homage. On top of that, fans love to hear their favorite artists take on the songs they already know and love. But then again, that's the catch with covers. You're playing a piece that people already love, a piece that people have their own memories attached to, a piece that has helped someone figure out who they are, or understand the world they're in better. So how does an artist navigate the tumultuous waters of cover songs? I don't think there's a clear set of rules you can stick to that will guarantee success, but I do think there are lessons to be learned from looking at the great covers of the past. So today we're going to explore 3 of the most successful covers ever recorded, and find out what makes them tick. Let's take a closer look. In a 1995 interview with the Fort Lauderdale Sun-Sentinel, Bob Dylan described the first time he heard Jimi Hendrix's cover of All Along the Watchtower. It overwhelmed me, really. He had such talent, he could find things inside a song and vigorously develop them. He found things that other people wouldn't think of finding in there. He probably improved upon it by the spaces he was using. In fact, Dylan was so impressed by Hendrix's song that his live performances of All Along the Watchtower began to resemble Hendrix's arrangement more than his own. In the liner notes to Biograph, Dylan even admits that when he plays the song now, he feels like he's doing it in tribute to the late Hendrix. If an endorsement like that isn't a sign of a successful cover, then I don't know what is. But to see why it's so successful, we need to start at Bob Dylan's original song. Released on 1967's John Wesley Harding, Dylan's original is a simple, cryptic song. It's made of just 3 different chords, repeated in a pattern below 12 lines of lyrics. Those 12 lines have been discussed and debated for decades, and I'm not even going to try to get at what they might have meant. What I can tell you, though, is how they feel. They're filled with archetypal figures imbued with religious symbolism, and there's a very real air of apocalypse to them. That's evident from the song's opening lines, which drop the listener right in the middle of the action.
There must be some way out of here, said the Joker to the thief.
By opening on a line like that, Dylan imbues the song with tension and desperation. It seems that for Hendrix, that tension was at the core of the song, because he's able to extrapolate it into his musical arrangement. Just as Dylan's lyrics throw us into the middle of the action, Hendrix's music opens up with a loud, tense phrase. This now iconic intro sets the tone for the entire song. It's noisy, it's powerful, and it's dark. As we move to the verse, the guitar quiets, but the tension is still there, and the guitar flourishes in the background seem to represent the confusion present in the lyrics.
There's too much confusion, I can't get no relief.
That guitar becomes even more representative of confusion midway through the song. The guitar slides up and down the neck as it pans across the mix. Hendrix has always had an ability to speak with his guitar. Through his playing style and his choice in pedal effects, Hendrix's guitar is imbued with a unique personality. This allows Hendrix to insert himself into the song through an instrumental voice. Albin J. Zach III described this effect in a piece published for the Journal of the American Musicological Society. Hendrix assumes the narrator role as he sings Dylan's songs, but by injecting a new character into the narrative, the lead guitar, with an attribute clearly identified with Hendrix himself, he becomes, in effect, two personae at the same time, narrator and hero. The injection of Hendrix's self adds a new dynamic to the song. Dylan has spent his entire career deliberately curating an air of mystery. He speaks to the press in riddles and rarely divulges personal information. So when he sings All Along the Watchtower, his narrative voice is enigmatic. But Hendrix's persona wasn't particularly mysterious. He was open to the public, wearing bright psychedelic colors, and he sang honestly about his emotions. Tracks like The Wind Cries Mary, Little Wing, and Bold as Love are raw, vulnerable, and approachable in a way that very few Dylan tracks are. Instead of trying to force himself into Dylan's mysterious persona, Hendrix finds a way to insert his personality into the song. All Along the Watchtower became a personal song for Hendrix, and he was very open about this. He once said, "I felt like Watchtower was something I'd written but could never get together. I often felt like that about Dylan. I could never write the kinds of words he does." Hendrix's empathy with the lyrics transforms the song, particularly in the final movement. Dylan's song ends in a similar place to where it started. It's removed from progress in time, seeming ready to launch back into the beginning. Hendrix's song, on the other hand, has a clear direction. The finale grows in tension until it explodes into a triumphant final solo. Jimi Hendrix was able to find a new kind of meaning in Dylan's song. He recontextualized it to his own personal experience and sang it in his voice. But he did more than just that. He was able to place the song in a new historical context. Hendrix released All Along the Watchtower in 1968, a pivotal year in the Vietnam War. In January 1968, the North Vietnamese began one of the most important campaigns of the entire conflict, the Tet Offensive. It was defined by massive attacks on dense population centers in South Vietnam. This shifted the war in Vietnam, but it also changed things in America. American citizens had been led to believe the war was nearly ending, but now they were seeing footage of death and destruction in Saigon. This shocking turn spurred anti-war activism, and things in America got tenser and more confusing. Amidst this, All Along the Watchtower's lyrics took on new meaning. The Joker and the Thief could suddenly be read as soldiers in a desperate situation, and the images throughout the song applied all too well to the Vietnam War. This is especially true with the opening lines, "There must be some kind of way out of here." Hendrix's bombastic guitar and the sharp rattle of the percussion lean into this reading, and Watchtower quickly became synonymous with the Vietnam War. It became Hendrix's biggest song and was played frequently both in America and on the ground for the troops in Vietnam. This airplay cemented Hendrix's song as an important piece of music history and as one of the greatest covers ever recorded. Trent Reznor was in a dark place when he wrote Hurt. He was fighting a losing battle with depression and addiction, a battle that became the basis for The Downward Spiral, his second studio album as 9 Inch Nails. Hurt was the conclusion of that album, a meditation on drug use, mental illness, and self-harm. It was Reznor laying himself bare at the lowest moment of his life. But when Reznor watched the video for Johnny Cash's cover of Hurt, even he admitted, quote, "That song isn't mine anymore." Johnny Cash's version was recorded in 2002, just a year before his death at the age of 71. And so it became an unlikely swan song for one of music's all-time greats. But Cash himself was actually hesitant to record the song. It was only through the persistence of his producer, Rick Rubin, that the cover came to be. Rubin told the Rolling Stone about the kinds of covers he was trying to encourage Cash to take on. He was at a time where his health was failing, and I tried to pick songs that made sense lyrically for the way his voice was sounding. There were times when his voice sounded broken. That broken voice strikes you early in the song. Cash's voice still has its signature depth and power, but it's wavering, scratchy.
I hurt myself today.
It's a stark contrast to Reznor's original, which was sung much higher in a near whisper. Cash's voice is accompanied by wide-open, sparse production. As the song grows, the music swells behind Cash, giving the kind of gravitas that can only come with a legend of Cash's stature.
Everyone I know goes away in the year.
Rubin told Broken Records that Cash's age added a new level of depth and pain to the lyrics. Totally different song, and much more hopeless. Usually by the time you're that age, you've found resolution. So to have sort of 20-year-old angst in your 60s and 70s, it's brutal. But the power and hurt doesn't come exclusively from Cash's age. It also comes from knowing who Cash is. Rubin wrote about this on Genius. What I came to realize about that whole Johnny Cash experience was that he was a great storyteller. The song didn't matter. All that mattered were the words. All that mattered was if the character of Johnny Cash, the mythical Johnny Cash, the man in black, would say those words. If that's what you would want to hear him talking about, then that would be a good song to do. It's powerful to see a figure like Cash made vulnerable. The myth of Johnny Cash is that of a hard man, an outlaw who famously sang, "I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die." And while some aspects of Cash's persona were fabricated, many of his darker sides were all too real. Throughout much of his career, Cash struggled with alcoholism and addiction to amphetamines and barbiturates. Cash even called Hurt the best anti-drug song I ever heard after reading its lyrics. It's a struggle that Cash shares with Reznor, but when Cash gets to the chorus, the song takes on a whole new level.
And you could have it all. My empire of dirt.
The image of an empire of dirt is made more powerful when sung by a man who towers over music history. Cash truly did have an empire. He once even had an entire museum dedicated to his life. That museum, derelict by 2002, provided a stunning set piece for the Mark Romanek-directed video. The video depicts Johnny Cash sitting amidst the remnants of his triumph. It calls to mind Percy Shelley's Ozymandias, a meditation on the futility of empire. In the second verse, Cash makes a small change to the lyrics, but one that adds a whole new weight to the song. He changes Reznor's crown of shit into a crown of thorns. Suddenly, Cash's devout spirituality is called to mind, and a secular song becomes religious. With that line, Cash becomes a martyr and a messiah. He understands the role he holds in the eyes of many, and he understands his place in music history. That's the power in Cash's take on Hurt. It's a legend sitting on death's doorstep and using the words of another musician to open up and explore the pains of his life. And in doing so, it starts a wider conversation about the nature of legacy, and it begs a vital question. Do fame and fortune really matter if you can't take them with you in the end? In 1967, Aretha Franklin was at a turning point in her career. She spent most of the 60s gaining acclaim and had even been crowned the Queen of Soul, but she had yet to cross over into the mainstream. Then, in April, she released her take on Otis Redding's Respect. The song caught fire and rocketed to the top of Billboard's Hot 100. It would eventually go gold, Franklin's first single to accomplish this, and to this day, if you asked a random person to sing any Aretha Franklin song, they'd probably start spelling out respect at the top of their lungs. By October of that year, Otis Redding himself had already acknowledged that the song belonged to Franklin, despite it being a favorite of his.
This song is a song that a girl took away from me. A good friend of mine. This girl, she just took this song, but I'm still gonna do it anyway.
Redding wrote the original song from the perspective of a touring musician, one who doesn't care what his wife does when he's away, as long as she gives him respect when he gets home from the road. Franklin heard and appreciated Redding's version, but she felt she had a new perspective to offer, a distinctly female perspective. She made some slight changes to the lyrics and sang it in a woman's voice. Rather than a man offering up money to a woman, the song became one of social and financial independence. Franklin took Redding's song and reinterpreted it based on her own personal experiences navigating life as a black woman in the world. She further injected herself in the song through its arrangement. Franklin and her sisters spiced the arrangement with pieces of slang they'd heard in their neighborhood. They inserted TCB, which stood for taking care of business, and the line "sock it to me." In an interview with Terry Gross, Franklin explained that she and her sisters had overheard kids in West Detroit saying that phrase. Some of the girls were saying that to the fellas, like "sock it to me in this way" or "sock it to me in that way." It's not sexual, it was non-sexual, just a cliche line. And then there's the most iconic part of Franklin's arrangement. R-E-S-P-C-T, find out what it means to me. R-E-S-P-C-T. By spelling out the title of the song, Aretha Franklin turned it into an eminently singable anthem. When you hear her deliver those lines with honesty and power, it's difficult not to empathize with her and to sing along. The final result of all of this is a song that's drastically different than Redding's original. Aretha Franklin took the song, pulled it apart to find its core, and reassembled the pieces around that. And this new version had a whole new meaning. It took a song that was a playful take on the social norms of the time and turned it into a defiant rally against those very same norms. Though Franklin's version was inspired by her own personal experiences, it tapped into something much bigger than that. Because the world was shifting in 1967. All kinds of marginalized peoples were standing up and demanding change. The long fight for civil rights in the United States was reaching its pinnacle, and second-wave feminism was emerging as women everywhere demanded to be treated as equal members of society. At the same time, youths worldwide were standing up against authorities and institutions that had denied them a voice. At their core, all of these movements really consisted of people demanding the same thing: respect. Aretha Franklin herself credited the success of this song to the universal message, saying, "Everyone wants to be respected." Franklin's music provided a unique kind of soundtrack for those demands. It had fire and anger, but it also had joyous horn arrangements and a groove that made you want to move. And it was a song about empowerment, a song about standing up to those who would keep you down, both on an individual level and on a systemic level. It became a key part of the soundtrack to one of America's most tumultuous eras, and even today, it lives on beyond that. By taking Otis Redding's song, putting her own arrangement behind it, and modifying the lyrics to reflect her own experience, Aretha Franklin created not just one of the greatest covers of all time, but a civil rights anthem that endures to this day. Though each of these three covers may sound disparate from each other, there's similarities at the core. Each one is musically distinct from the original, whether that's a new vocal performance, new instrumentation, or an entirely new arrangement. In each of these cases, the cover artist personalizes the song, singing it in their own voice and putting their personality into it. And perhaps most important, each of these covers changes the social and historical context of the songs. In doing so, these artists elevate the songs, claim them as their own, and turn them into something that will withstand the test of time. As you might have noticed, this video is probably one of my most visually ambitious projects to date. Part of the reason I've been able to expand my visual style so much lately is Skillshare. I've been spending some of my quarantine time taking new Skillshare lessons on After Effects, and honestly, they've paid dividends. If you're looking for somewhere to start, a great course is Jake Bartlett's Animating with Ease in After Effects. Even though I already knew the basics behind easing, that course helped expand my knowledge and gave me a much better idea of how to make my animations look like I really wanted them to. And that's the great thing about Skillshare. Whether you're a beginner or a seasoned veteran, you'll be able to find courses to learn from. Skillshare is an online community for creatives where millions come together to take their next step in their creative journey, however far along they are. They've got thousands of courses on all kinds of topics, so if you give it a look, I'm sure you'll find something that works for you. One course that I think everyone should check out is Thomas Frank's course on mastering habits. Everyone has habits and personal goals that they want to develop, and this course will help you do just that. So if you feel like honing your creativity or just generally improving your life, you can start today by going to skl.sh/polyphonic28. The first 1,000 people to click that link will get 2 months of Skillshare Premium for free. After that, an annual subscription is less than $10 a month, so it's a really affordable way to improve yourself. So why not try it out while you've got the time? If you do, make sure you click the link in the description. Not only does that get you a really great deal, it also shows Skillshare that I was the one who sent you, and that's a really big help to my channel. Thanks again for watching.